welcome to your personalized Jeep dive.
Hmm.
Today, we're going to be cracking open The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Oh, yeah.
You've sent over some really thought-provoking excerpts,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to explore what makes this methodology so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Whether you're, deep in the startup world, working on a new project at a big company,
Right.
or just curious about innovation, get ready to shift your thinking a little bit.
It's amazing how the lean startup goes way beyond that image of,
Yeah.
the tech startup in the garage.
Yeah.
The principles can be applied to practically anything.
Right.
Launching a new product,
Mhm.
improving existing services,
Yeah.
even revitalizing how government agencies work.
Ries really throws a curveball right from the get-go
Uh-huh.
by challenging how we define a startup.
Yeah.
It's not about hoodies and ping pong tables.
Right.
It's a mindset.
Right.
It's about tackling uncertainty head-on
Yeah.
to create something new wherever you are.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
Ries emphasizes extreme uncertainty as a defining characteristic of startups.
Right.
And it sets them apart from, say, opening another franchise,
Yeah.
where you have a pretty good idea of what to expect.
Right.
Traditional business plans, which rely heavily on predictions,
Yeah.
just don't cut it in these uncertain, constantly changing environments.
He drives this home with his own experience at IMVU.
Oh, yeah.
They had this, quote, brilliant plan for an instant messaging add-on,
Right.
but it totally bombed.
Yeah.
Turns out they were building something nobody actually wanted.
A classic example of waste, which Ries says is the enemy of any startup. What's valuable is validated learning, not just churning out a product nobody uses.
Right.
That's where the build, measure, learn loop comes in. You
Yeah.
build something small,
Right.
get it out there to see how people respond,
Yeah.
and then use that data to decide whether to pivot or keep going.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant cycle of testing and adapting.
And that brings us to one of the most talked about concepts from the lean startup, the minimum viable product,
Uh-huh.
the MVP.
The MVP.
Forget spending years in a development case.
Right.
The MVP is all about getting your idea out there fast.
Yes.
To test those make or break assumptions.
Exactly.
Remember the early days of Groupon?
Oh, yeah?
They started with handmade PDFs and pizza coupons.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly glamorous,
Right.
but it was enough to launch them to billion-dollar success.
It's a radical shift from the traditional emphasis on perfection.
Right.
The MVP forces you to embrace imperfection as a learning tool,
Yeah.
a way to gather real customer feedback early on. Even a seemingly low-quality MVP can be incredibly valuable if it helps you answer crucial questions about your business model.
It's like that famous story of Zappos.
Oh, yeah.
They started by simply testing if people even wanted a better online shoe shopping experience.
Exactly.
No fancy website, no huge inventory.
Yeah.
They just needed to validate that core assumption.
Exactly. And in doing so, they also unearthed valuable insights about other parts of the business, handling payments, returns, customer support.
Right.
It all stemmed from that initial experiment.
Which leads us to what was a huge aha moment for me, innovation accounting.
Yeah.
It tackles a big challenge.
Yeah.
How do you actually measure progress when traditional metrics don't apply?
Yeah.
Ries introduces a whole new way of thinking about this, prioritizing learning milestones over vanity metrics.
It's a complete reframing, moving from simply measuring outputs to understanding the outcomes that matter. Instead of celebrating website visits, for example, innovation accounting focuses on the activation rate.
Right.
How many people are actually using your product after signing up?
Exactly.
This shift helps you measure real progress, not just activity.
He illustrates this perfectly with the example of Grocket,
Oh, right.
the online test prep platform. They were initially tracking things like total customers and questions answered.
Right.
But it was a false sense of progress.
Yeah.
When they shifted to actionable metrics tied to user behavior, it revealed that their marketing needed more attention
Right.
than their product features.
A true game changer.
Yeah.
By using data to answer the right questions,
Right.
they unlocked their growth potential.
Yeah.
And this principle is just as relevant for a small startup as it is for a large organization.
Ries then tackles another crucial aspect of growth,
Okay.
the engines of growth framework. He argues it's not enough to just build a great product.
Right.
You need to understand which engine is driving your success.
Yeah.
Sticky, viral, or paid.
And choosing the wrong engine can be a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Each one has its own set of metrics for success. The sticky engine focuses on engagement and retention.
Right.
How often people come back and how long they stay.
Yeah.
Viral growth relies on the viral coefficient. Right.
How many new users each existing user brings in.
Exactly.
And the paid engine is all about finding that delicate balance between customer lifetime value and the cost of acquiring each new customer.
One thing that really struck me is that Ries recommends focusing on one engine at a time. Trying to juggle all three can dilute your efforts and lead to confusion.
Exactly. It's about identifying the engine that aligns best with your business model and doubling down on it. Once you've mastered one, you can explore others strategically.
Finally, Ries delves into a challenge that both startups and large companies grapple with. Managing a portfolio of innovation projects. How do you balance the need for operational excellence, keeping the lights on, with the drive for disruptive innovation, creating the future?
It's a real balancing act. Large companies often struggle with this because they're so focused on maintaining their existing business models.
They're afraid to rock the boat. Even if it means falling behind in the long run.
It's like being so busy steering the ship that you forget to look out for icebergs.
Precisely. Ries argues that companies need to create structures
Yeah.
that allow for both types of work to flourish simultaneously.
Right.
One strategy he proposes is the innovation sandbox.
We touched on that earlier, the idea of giving innovation teams the freedom to experiment
Right.
without jeopardizing the core business.
Yes.
Like a safe space to play and explore, but with clear goals and accountability.
Exactly. It's about carving out dedicated space
Yeah.
for those disruptive ideas to grow and potentially transform the entire organization down the line. What's fascinating is how these principles can be applied beyond, the typical startup.
Right.
Ries even uses the example of a government agency, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau,
Oh, wow.
to show how they use the build, measure, learn loop
Yeah.
to design more effective services. It's a reminder that these concepts aren't limited to the tech world.
Right.
They're relevant for anyone trying to solve problems and create value.
It really highlights the universality of the scientific method,
Yes.
applying it even to areas we don't usually think of as innovative.
Right.
But let's talk about one of the more counterintuitive aspects of the lean startup,
Okay.
the concept of small batches.
This is where Ries draws inspiration from lean manufacturing.
Right.
Particularly the Toyota production system, where working in small batches, even though it might seem less efficient on the surface, actually leads to faster learning and better quality.
It's like that anecdote Ries shares
Oh, yeah.
about stuffing envelopes with his daughters. They thought doing each envelope one at a time was crazy,
Right.
but it turned out to be much faster and less error-prone.
Exactly. This principle applies just as much to building software as it does to stuffing envelopes. Traditional waterfall development, where you work in huge batches and only get feedback after months of work, is like driving with a blindfold on small batches, on the other hand, allow for more frequent course correction based on real customer data. Highlights Alphabet Energy, a clean tech startup, as a great example. By working in small batches, they were able to rapidly iterate on their product design, finding the sweet spot between performance, price, and size for their early adopters.
And they achieved this at a fraction of the cost that other energy startups were burning through.
Absolutely. Small batches force you to be more resourceful and efficient with your time and money. You're constantly testing your assumptions and gathering data to validate or invalidate your learning, which leads to better decisions and ultimately a more successful product.
This concept of hypothesis poll really struck a chord with me. Instead of just following a rigid product roadmap, you let your learning guide the development process.
It's a fundamental shift in thinking. Instead of asking, can we build this? You're asking, should we build this? And how can we test that assumption quickly and effectively? It's a laser focus on using real data to validate your learning.
And that brings us to one of the most powerful tools in the lean startup arsenal, the 5 whys.
It's a brilliant technique.
Yeah.
Also borrowed from the Toyota production system You keep asking why.
Right.
Digging deeper beyond the superficial symptoms to get to the root cause of a problem.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, as they say.
Right.
Until you reach the core.
Exactly.
And as Ries points out, more often than not, the root cause is a human problem, not a technical one.
Absolutely. He shares an example from IMVU, where they were getting complaints about a new product release. It turned out a server had failed. But the root cause wasn't a technical glitch.
Oh, wow.
A new engineer hadn't been properly trained.
I don't know.
Because, believe it or not, his manager didn't believe in training.
It's incredible how seemingly small issues can be symptoms of much larger systemic problems.
That's exactly why the 5 Whys is so valuable. It gives you a framework for systematically addressing those root causes.
Yeah.
And it's about making a proportional investment in fixing the problem.
Right.
You don't need to overhaul your entire system for a minor glitch.
Yeah.
But you also shouldn't ignore the underlying issues that could lead to bigger problems down the line.
Ries even suggests appointing a 5 Whys master.
Oh, interesting.
Someone to own the process, facilitate those crucial conversations, and make sure things actually get done.
But it takes real commitment to solve them effectively.
Now, one of the toughest things for any growing business is knowing when to pivot. It's recognizing when your initial assumptions were wrong.
Right.
And having the courage to change course.
And this is where those lean startup metrics we talked about earlier come into play by tracking your actionable metrics and using innovation accounting. You get a clear picture of whether you're making real progress or just spinning your wheels.
Ries uses the example of Vodafone.
Oh, yeah.
A company that went through several pivots before finding its footing.
Right. They started with the vision of a social network for verified voters. But after months of testing and iteration, they realized their growth model wasn't working. They had good registration and activation rates, but people weren't sticking around or inviting their friends. Their retention and referral rates were dismal.
So they pivoted to a more transactional model. But even that didn't quite hit the mark.
Exactly. But that's where the power of the lean startup shines through. It allows you to fail fast. And, more importantly, to learn from those failures. Vodafone ultimately pivoted to a self-serve platform where anyone could connect with verified voters for their cause. That turned out to be their winning formula.
It's a testament to the importance of persistence and adaptability. You might have a great vision. But you need to be willing to adapt your strategy based on what you learn along the way.
Precisely. Ries emphasizes that pivots aren't failures. They're course corrections. They're opportunities to test new hypotheses and find a better path towards achieving your vision. Sometimes that path leads you somewhere completely unexpected, and that's okay.
This brings us back to that challenge we discussed earlier. Managing a portfolio of innovation. Balancing the need for operational excellence with a drive for disruptive innovation.
It's a struggle many established companies face. They're so focused on keeping their existing business running smoothly that they hesitate to disrupt the status quo, even if it means falling behind in the long run.
Like clinging to the familiar.
Yes.
Even when it's clear that the world is changing around them.
Exactly. Ries argues that to thrive in today's rapidly evolving world, companies need to embrace both types of work. Operational excellence and disruptive innovation. And they need to create structures that allow both to flourish. One strategy he proposes, as we mentioned before, is the innovation sandbox.
That safe space for innovation teams to experiment without jeopardizing the core business.
Yes. It's about giving those teams the freedom to explore new ideas, test hypotheses, and even fail without fear of derailing the entire organization.
And as those innovations prove successful, they can gradually be integrated back into the core business, creating a constant cycle of renewal and growth.
It's a beautiful vision of how organizations can constantly evolve and adapt to stay ahead of the curve.
And it all hinges on fostering a culture of learning and adaptation, a willingness to embrace experimentation, and a comfort with failure as a stepping stone to success.
Absolutely. It's about creating an environment where it's safe to challenge assumptions test new ideas, and learn from your mistakes.
And that culture needs to be nurtured from the top down.
Yes.
Leaders need to embody these principles, empowering their teams to experiment.
Right.
And celebrating learning.
Yeah.
Even when it comes from things not going according to plan.
It's a shift from a culture of blame to a culture of curiosity.
Right.
And it's essential for any organization that wants to not just survive, but thrive in the long run.
So after this deep dive into the lean startup, what would you say are the key takeaways?
Oh, that's a great question.
What's the one thing our listeners should walk away with?
I think the core of the lean startup is that, it's not just a set of tools or techniques. It's a mindset. Yeah. It's about embracing uncertainty and using a scientific, data-driven approach to navigate the messy world of innovation.
It's about moving away from that illusion of certainty that often trips up traditional business planning.
Right.
Instead, you're constantly testing your assumptions.
Yes.
Gathering real-world data.
Right.
And adapting your approach based on what you learn.
Ries argues that, we live in an age of unprecedented waste, with countless hours and resources poured into building things that nobody wants.
Right.
And that's where the lean startup comes in.
Yeah.
It's a call to action, urging us to be more thoughtful, more efficient, and more focused on creating real value.
He doesn't just diagnose the problem, though.
Right.
He presents a solution, a framework for changing the way we approach work and innovation.
He even proposes the idea of, creating startup testing labs dedicated to rigorously researching what actually drives productivity and success in uncertain environments.
It's a bold vision for the future of work.
It is.
One where entrepreneurship is treated as a craft that can be studied, practiced, and constantly improved upon.
Ultimately, the lean startup is about more than just building successful businesses. Yeah. It's about creating a more sustainable, fulfilling, and impactful way of working. Right. One where we're constantly learning, growing, and making a positive difference in the world.
This deep dive has been such an eye-opener for me, I think.
Yeah, me too.
It really drives home the point that, innovation isn't about having all the answers right from the start.
Right.
It's about asking the right questions and having a process for discovering those answers, even if they lead you in unexpected directions.
And it's about having the courage to challenge conventional wisdom, to experiment with new ideas, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with creating something truly new.
So before we wrap up, here's something to ponder for our listeners.
Okay.
What if the future of work isn't about executing flawlessly, but about our ability to learn, adapt, and evolve in the face of constant change?
That's a good one.
That's something to chew on until our next deep dive. Thanks for joining us.